Louise Geller, welcome into Forever Forward. We are so happy to have you on.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great fun to be here. Thank you for having me.
By all accounts, you are a modern day Renaissance woman. I mean, you are a singer, you're an actress, a producer, you speak several languages, and on top of that, you're also a practicing doctor. So, look, I guess a fun place to start would be when people ask you what you wanted to be when you grow up, what was your answer to that question?
Yes, I have a memory that for quite a while I wanted to be a pilot like my dad. So which I haven't ended up doing that, but I still have a love of aviation and flying. And actually my husband now is also a pilot. So that's good conversation when a family gets together. Since a young age, I've always kind of wanted to be on the stage as well. That was always kind of there too.
So it seems like, your early career started in what I would call like the musical theater and the opera side. Can you talk a bit about, I don't know, what drew you to that? Because I don't have a lot of people in my network that are in musical theater. I'd be really curious to know what it's like to grow up with that in your life.
Well, growing up, I think I always had quite a bit of classical music in my life. My parents, particularly my dad, really enjoyed opera and used to take me to the ballet and to see some operas when I was younger, and a lot of musical theatre to begin with. I think that's a really good stepping stone into later discovering opera. But at a young age, I remember going to quite a few musicals in the West End with my parents, which I always loved. My dad told me a story once that he took me, I think it was the Nutcracker Ballet, when I was about 4 or 5 years old. And he looked at me and apparently my face was just like, oh, like thinking of the stage. And so I've always loved that. And then I always was very much into drama and theatre when I was younger, doing quite a lot of kind of public speaking and sort of, drama and things at school. But I never really knew or thought that I could sing until I was at school and I was about 14 years old. And my school did a production of Les Miserables. And I auditioned for that. And before that, I hadn't ever seen the musical. I didn't really know much about the musical. And I auditioned and got the role of Cosette, the adult Cosette. And which was so wonderful for me. And that's when I discovered both my kind of slightly more classical voice and higher range. And also I discovered Les Miserables and a lot of other musicals that I then got super into. I think Les Mis and Phantom for me were the first two that really made me catch the bug and love musical theatre. And both those are a little bit more towards the classical end. So I sort of then, I think from there, stepped into then discovering some more of the sort of operas. But I definitely started very much in musical theatre. And after that, I went on to do, my drama teacher told me about a production of Swedish that was going on. So I auditioned for that and got the role of Joanna. And then I did Beauty and the Beast and got the role of Belle. This is all when I was kind of younger, sort of amateur dramatic stuff. And it was just so amazing. I loved it. I was always couldn't wait for the next show. So it was incredible.
No, that sounds extremely exciting. And one thing that I really have had no exposure to is the operatic singing, the opera side of this, because my understanding is that you are an opera singer. Was that something that you even really knew about as you entered into musical theater, or was that something that came along later?
Yeah, not really at the beginning. I think it's definitely something that came a little bit later. My singing teacher, who I started having proper singing lessons when I got the role in Les Miserables, and she was a little bit, well, she was more of a classical singer and singing teacher. So I started singing more of the classical things, and obviously my role in Les Mis was that little bit more higher end soprano, a little bit more classical, legit, what do you call it in Les Mis, in musical theatre. And
Right.
so I started singing a little bit more sort of opera and from there. And I think because my range is very high. So yeah, I discovered as well that the musical theatre stuff was really fun to sing. But then I suddenly realised I started listening to these coloratura opera sopranos, which are the ones who sing very high, very fast. And I was like, that is so amazing. I want to be able to do that with my voice. Like, I can't believe a human voice can do that. And I've had a lot of people say to me as well, when I've done performances or when they've heard opera and they're like, I did not know that, the voice could do those things. And I've never heard anything like that. And, there's so much exciting music out there in opera to discover. So I always try and actually we might go to it later, but I've been really passionate about trying to show people that opera can be really fun as well. And it's not just kind of this boring old art form. There's loads of really amazing music and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I've never been to an opera before. After now having watched several of your performances, I'm intrigued. I'm excited to see, and I can imagine here in New York City, there's quite a scene, unless I'm mistaken. So I'm excited to go check out a show. One thing I'd be very curious about is, look, as somebody who was very scared of like public speaking for a long time, did you ever get stage fright, or like what was it like to go up on stage for the first time? Do you ever get nervous? Do you still get nervous? What's that like?
I always have some nerves before I go on stage. I think it depends as well what I'm doing. If it's a show with like, huge audience and things like that, I probably feel a little bit more. But I always find as soon as I'm on the stage, I just love it. Like I'm kind of attracted to big stages with such an exciting
Yeah, yeah.
I just, as soon as I step out on a big stage, I'm just like, oh, wow, this is just amazing. But I always do get some nerves before, and I think it's good. Other performers I've spoken to as well, you've got to be a little bit nervous, and it helps the performance. If you're too relaxed, things kind of go wrong. You've got to feel a little bit of that nervousness. On the flip side, if you're too nervous, things can also go wrong.
I will say, I do know a few individuals in my network that either sing or act, but I don't know any that do those things and are also a doctor. So can I ask you, from there, where did you sort of discover medicine, and why decide to pursue it alongside your passion for the arts?
Yes, I think about the same time at school, I sort of discovered that I enjoyed the sciences, and I was quite good at the sciences as well. And but I think I also come from a bit of a medical family. So my mum was a doctor, my grandpa was a doctor. So I think I had it a little bit in the family, like, oh, maybe you should consider medicine. But I think medicine is one of those things that does combine kind of art and science. And for me, art and science are both big parts of my life. And you've got that sort of communication side and, the more academic side. And I think medicine is something that, and I know a lot of my friends who did medicine, a lot of them were musical or did drama or, art. They often did have that something else in their life they did and enjoy doing. I think that's very important as well when you do something like medicine, which can be quite stressful, demanding career.
I can imagine. And it's funny you say that about the kind of the quantitative side, but also the more emotional side. I think you do bring up a good point. I think some of the best individuals that practice medicine are those that have a high level of, emotional intelligence or a good bedside manner. I guess when myself and maybe others think of doctors or people that practice, we imagine them as, just pure intellectuals. But I think that's actually not the right way to think about it. I think there's a blend.
Yeah, so that's what happened when I applied for medicine. And I think it's one of those things, I guess, that I could kind of keep my music going. And I hope that I'll be able to keep the music and drama going at the side of medicine, whereas it's difficult to do medicine at the side of the... Although later I did sort of do that, but when I did my master's in music and opera. But that's for later.
Wow. Well, that's a question I was going to ask you is, as if medicine isn't demanding enough, right? I do have a couple friends that are actually actively in medical school right now. They don't even have time to eat or sleep. How do you balance those two things? You must have a serious degree of time management skills.
I don't know. I feel like my time management is better actually when I do have lots going on. I can plan a bit better then. And throughout medical school, I think, for me, it was just such a passion doing the opera and the music, and I made time for it. And all my spare time, I was doing that really, and I really loved doing that. And I think it kept me sane as well. And I think it's so important in medicine to have that work-life balance. And I had a great teacher in Bristol, so I was able to keep studying voice. And then I was performing with an opera company when I was doing my when I was at medical school at the side. So that was good. But it was a sort of more of an amateur semi-pro company, so I could go and rehearse in the evenings after I'd done my lectures and all my other stuff.
Right.
Although I do remember one show I did, and I had an exam the next day, and it was a pathology exam as well, which is like very difficult. So I went backstage.
I can imagine.
With my revision notes during the show. But it went well.
Wow. I believe you. So what has the reaction been? Like, when you tell your castmates, oh, I also practice medicine, or you tell the folks maybe where you work, oh, yeah, I'm also in these shows and I sing. Have they been surprised or impressed, or they don't really care? I'm just curious to hear what they have to say about, these two parallel worlds that you have going on.
Yeah, people are generally quite surprised and quite impressed. It's nice. But I think, particularly, on both sides, I think particularly when, like, recently I was at the Edinburgh Fringe, and I think most people who there were just kind of, not everyone, but a lot of people were focused mostly on the acting, and they kind of don't expect you to maybe be doing something totally different as well.
Yeah.
And something like medicine. So when I don't usually bring it up, like, but if they ask me, what if I do anything else in my day job, then I actually say that, and they're like, what?
You're like, yes, I actually do quite a lot. Yes.
That's
very, very cool.
With my work, I mean, now I work in Sweden, and they're very, very supportive, which is lovely, of my performance and singing. And it is now, I think when you're in the junior doctor years, it is pretty demanding, the work, but I think in some ways I had a little bit more time then. But now I do work a lot on calls and things, so it can be difficult to have regular time where you can go to rehearsals and things. But as I say, so far, as long as I know in advance, I request some leave and then I go and do a show and then I come back and do the medicine and then I'll have like some concerts the weekend sometimes. So it's sort of go okay. They're very supportive.
Yeah.
Very good at work. Yeah.
Well, so you mentioned Sweden, and I know that you have learned Swedish recently. So can you help me to understand what prompted you to learn Swedish? And if I'm not mistaken, that means that you're actually practicing in a non-native language. Am I correct in that?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I met a Swedish man a few years ago, about 6 years ago now, I think. And and then COVID came and it was great. We were having a long distance relationship and then it was difficult, obviously, to keep seeing each other over that time. So I sort of thought, well, I can see if I can learn Swedish, come to Sweden, see if I can start working there, if that's an option for me. Not thinking that I would be able to, really. I was like, that's not going to happen. But yeah, so I went, and at the time I was also commuting back and working in A&E at the time in the UK, but then learning like mostly by distance Swedish. I was like really intensively studying it, and I've had some good teachers, and it helps. So my husband is my now husband. He's Swedish, and so we were practicing Swedish together, and and I had the time and I had the motivation. I think that's the thing with languages. Like I think anyone can learn language, but you need the time and you need that motivation to learn it. And I think at that period I had that, and that helped me learn it quite quickly.
Yeah. How long did it take you? Out of curiosity, how long did it take you to learn?
It was about a year. I moved to Sweden. I learned a little bit myself, and then I moved to Sweden, and then 9 months later I took my language fluency exam and I passed. I feel like it's almost like a driving license. Once you pass that, everyone's like, okay, you're technically fluent, but you don't feel fluent really at that point. There's still long.
Yes.
And I think certainly now compared to when I was there, even though they said I was fluent then, I'm a lot more fluent. Obviously now it's much more comfortable working now.
No, absolutely. So yeah. I'm curious very much of the crossover between these two roles of yours. And I'm curious if you have anything to say about how your role as a doctor influences your life on stage. Do you find that it actually benefits the way that you perform or engage?
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think in some ways as a doctor, you do see a lot of life. You see a lot of different people from all different backgrounds. You experience a lot of things. So I think maybe that can help me when I'm playing different character roles to sort of get into those characters' minds and sort of, help with my acting performance there. And then I think as well, the other things which are similar, I mean, they're both can be quite stressful careers, and I guess that sort of managing stress and things, that can be something.
That's very true.
Yeah. And also the thing I've noticed, I find is quite similar. It's just the general environment when you're in the hospital and you're all working together on a group goal with, you've got the doctors, you've got the nurses, you've got physios, you've got porters, you've got everyone together working for that joint goal. And when you're in the theatre, it's the same. And it's sort of that backstage buzz is a little bit like being, working in the hospital, I think, a little bit, because you've got, the actors, you've got technicians, the lights and sound, you've got the musicians, you've got everyone working together to do this group goal.
Yeah.
To perform.
Yeah, no, it's such a great point. And I think at the end of the day, whether it's being a doctor or, being on stage or being a lawyer or a banker or whatever we perceive as these kind of high skill careers, fundamentally, they're all the same. They just require discipline and focus and a level of commitment. And I think you raise a really good point, and I hadn't thought of that before. So thank you. Here's another question. And in this way, have you ever had to use your doctor skills on the stage? Have you ever had to, I don't know, perform any type of medical procedure? Has anybody ever injured themselves? I'm actually very curious.
Yeah. I mean, nothing like really dramatic. I had a role one time where I had to just pretend to be, basically it was in Così fan tutte, which it's an opera where my character was pretending to be a doctor at one point. So I had my real stethoscope and then I was sort of pretending to be a doctor, and that was quite fun. And I sort of had created these weird medical instruments that I was using on stage. Like, oh yes, we'll do this. So that was quite fun. And then also the other day, I was recently in a production of Magic Flute playing the Queen of the Night. And just as I was about to go on for my first entry and my first aria, I was sort of waiting to go on. And I actually come down through the aisles. So I was sort of in the area behind where the audience come in and out.
Ah, yes.
There was blood on the floor. And I was like, is this some part of the show that I wasn't aware of? What is this? And then I saw that there was someone just came out of the toilet behind us, a member of the audience who'd had a massive nosebleed and was just sort of holding a nose.
Oh,
and I'm actually,
no.
And I was like, oh no. I was like in all my costume and my long black nails and my like all black Queen of the Night scary stuff. Like, you okay? And actually my specialty, I'm a specialty trainee in ear, nose and throat. So nosebleeds are like my day to day. So I'm just like, right,
Yeah.
hold it here. Now I gotta sing my RS.
You're like, no. You're like, trust me, I know exactly what to do for this one.
Yeah, I got this.
That is,
Yeah.
that is funny. And look, I can imagine, obviously, it sounds like those are fun and can be a little, in that case, maybe challenged your performance just in the beginning. But I am curious, as far as the roles that you've played to date, what would you say was your most challenging? Because I know that certain roles command more from you maybe than others. What would you say has been the most challenging experience for you on stage?
Yeah, I think probably I did a really exciting role in at the end of my time when I was studying masters in opera at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama. And it was based on Great Expectations, the character of Miss Havisham. And it was a kind of more modern opera, one-woman opera, where so it was just sort of Miss Havisham's character who I was playing, about 45 minutes, just singing a huge, continuing, just singing on me on stage the whole time. And which is quite demanding because you haven't really got like a break. You just sort of, you start and you go sort of thing. And it was quite complex music. And also it was really interesting because it was a really fun role to play because it was very like emotional. It was sort of her reliving that night where she gets stood up on her wedding day at the altar, which we all kind of know that story of Miss Havisham. Her groom doesn't turn up basically at the altar, and then she goes crazy and she sort of hides herself away in her wedding dress for years and years. And everyone knows there was this older lady, in Great Expectations. And obviously, it was also I was a real nice thinking with her when she was young. But but we were so she's reliving that moment, and it was very like dramatic and very emotional, and that it was really fun to play. But I felt like at the end you kind of feel like her pain a little bit. It's like, when you finish and the curtain comes down, you really feel that. Because I haven't played so many really dramatic, sad. Well, I think because of my being a younger soprano, a lot of my roles were a little bit more on the comedy side and things. So it was quite fun in some ways, and a bit of a different challenge to have that really dramatic sort of role.
So you've now, you still are on stage, you sing, you act, but now you also produce your own shows as well. What has it been like going from being on stage to now being kind of behind the scenes and directing something of your own?
Yeah, no, I mean, it is sort of different, and I've sort of been learning every time I do a new show. I've done two now, which I've done a few sort of small concerts as well, but two shows, comedy operas, and then Almost Lost in with my recent one, which I've just been at the Edinburgh Fringe with that. And definitely there's like a whole other side of things which you don't realize when you just turn up and perform a role in an opera that other people have directed and organized. And it's all the kind of, all the publicity and, how much I spent on the media side of things. And then you've also got to remember that you've also got to film the show, so you can't be out flyering and doing all the media all day and organizing all the other stuff, because you've also got to go and sing at the end of the day. So that's been a great learning curve. But I think it is really important for artists, especially sort of modern singers and actors, that if you can develop some of your own, because it can be very difficult, very competitive out there getting these roles. And I think if you can develop some of your own work and take it out there, it's a good thing to do. And the Fringe particularly has been a great experience. So you meet some really interesting people there, and you can make some great connections. And there's already a few people I spoke to there who were thinking about maybe trying to do something together with in future. And so it's such a great, thousands of artists come from, I don't know the Edinburgh Fringe, but thousands of artists come from around the world and perform thousands of shows there. It's the whole of August. It's a sort of arts festival, and it's an exciting place to be.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
So I know that you are, or have been, on several Got Talent shows. One of them was Britain's Got Talent. I believe there's a bit of a story there. So would you mind telling a quick story about how you and your dog were up on stage on the show?
Yeah, so I posted a video. My family's dog, Jasper, who I still grew up with, he's a lovely dog. He used to love singing with me since he was a puppy. I would practice at home and he would join in, and he had a lovely little voice. He was like, oh, so cute. And I posted a video of him singing along with me. And then someone from Britain's Got Talent saw it and was like, oh, you'd love to come on Britain's Got Talent and perform with Jasper. It's like, okay, cool, that could be all right. And then unfortunately COVID hit, so it was postponed for about 2 years. And by that time, when it was time to go and do it, he got a bit older and he was getting a little bit deaf, bless him, and he wasn't really feeling it anymore. Like, he wasn't singing like he used
Yeah,
to.
right.
He'd sing a tiny bit and he'd be like, okay, yeah, no, I'm good now. So, so I was like, I don't think he's going to sing. And I said to them, I don't think he is. But they were like, no, it's fine, just bring him. Come and do it, it'd be great. Okay. And I was thinking, well, at least I can sing. Hopefully they'll appreciate that. So I went and did it, and he did not sing, which is a shame. It is on YouTube.
Oh.
But I thought they might anyway. And actually, they don't show it, but a couple of judges did say it obviously had a very good voice, but they didn't really care because they wanted a chap to sing, and he didn't.
So
they were like,
so you just held him. You just held him and sung, and you sang alone. Is that what you did?
Yeah, well, I started by myself, and then he came on. The idea was he joined in with me, because I thought if I started a bit by myself, they'd hear a bit of me singing. Be like, oh yeah, nice. But yeah, and then he came in, and I just kept going. But we tried to make it funny. Like my pianist and I, we sort of made like a bit of a thing out of it. Like, are you gonna sing? And the audience seemed to appreciate it. Like we did a bit. I don't know if they really showed it so much actually in the final video, but the audience seemed to appreciate it at the time. So I think it was fun anyway. But I think it was actually quite good, because I think before that I wouldn't have actually had the courage to maybe put myself forward for those sort of things. And then that, when you asked have I been nervous, that I was so nervous before, because like I had no control either really, so I had no idea what Gaff was going to do. And also it was in the Palladium in London, which is a massive theatre, which, you know, is very exciting.
Massive.
I'm like, oh my God, and I've got my dog, and I don't think he's going to sing. So that was very nerve-wracking. But after that, I was like, right, if I can do that, I can do it. You know, I shouldn't be too nervous about doing other stuff now. So then I put myself into Sweden's Got Talent, and that was really good fun. Then I went and did one of my comedy opera pieces, and that went down well. Got 4 yeses.
Wow.
So
wow. Yeah. Well, that's amazing. So I guess in closing, a couple questions that I think people listening would really appreciate. So I even know personally a few of my younger family members are interested in pursuing careers, like they enjoy the arts, they enjoy the sciences. They're not really sure if they can do both. What advice would you give to people that want to do it all? I
like to think that you definitely can. I think I'm someone who I don't like to close down opportunity. I like to take all the opportunities I can and try and keep going with as much as I can at the same time and balance these two lives. And I mean, so far it has been possible. And I think the thing is as well with something like the arts, it's a fantastic career and it is very exciting. However, it is tough and it's really hard to get those breaks and to, you know, have that security in your work. And that is just sadly one of the things with that sort of career. And I have lots of friends who are really fabulous artists who just, you know, are struggling to get by. And that is tough. And I think for me, I am in a sort of privileged position now that I do have my work as a doctor. So I always have that. So I can be a little bit more kind of just choose kind of what I want to do with the singing and performance. But I think I have had times when I thought, but if I just focused on the singing and performance, how far could I take it? And I think you always have that thought if you haven't totally 100% gone for it. But then for me, you know, I took a break. I think that's the same with medicine or any of the sciences. You know, once you've done that degree, you're still pretty young. And particularly if you want to go to singing and opera, your voice is still considered very young, right into your sort of, you know, early 30s, you're still considered a young artist, because for opera, your voice keeps developing up until that point. If you want to be like a ballerina or something, you kind of got to go for it when you're younger. But luckily with opera and stuff, you can keep it as long as you're training all the time in the background, and you can do something else. And then when I auditioned for the master's degree, after I'd done medical school and after I'd done my, like, I don't know what's called in America, it's like foundation training is it like intern when you sort of rotate around as a junior doctor?
They call it residency.
Okay. Yeah. So I'd done my 2 years of residency in the UK before I picked my specialty. And that was a good time as well to have a break. So that's when I went and auditioned to do masters in opera. So then I had 2 years where I could focus on the opera, which was really exciting. And I was like, great, this is going somewhere. And then
and then COVID ruined it.
Yeah, but again, I was so you know, it was great that I could all my, you know, friends who just had the sort of singing side of things, all their shows were cancelled and stuff, whereas I was, you know, back in A&E, and I was glad that I could help obviously at that time as well in A&E and things. But
well,
it's
wonderful. I appreciate that. And hey, look, like even I'm sitting here, right? Like I have one career. I work in financial services. Man, I would love to go try and learn how to act, or I would love to try and learn how to go paint. Like, I don't know. I do feel like maybe we could all wake up and realize you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. You can do whatever you want as long as you make sure you plan for the time and you work as hard as you can. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think things are different in our generation as well now compared to like my parents' generation. They're very much like you keep going on that career ladder and keep going to that next thing. Whereas I
You're
think
so
now,
right.
there's a lot of young people, we are like actually taking breaks, trying something different, and that's fine. You've got all the time in the world, and I think particularly medicine science are going to be there, but you can come back to that. So take some time, explore those other things, and yeah.
I love that. And I guess just in closing, so you've clearly done so much up to this point. I mean, that's no secret. What is next for you? I mean, where do you go for here? Both from the kind of opera performance side and also from the medicine side. What's up next for Louise?
So I'm really pleased. I've got a job here in Sweden now as a specialty trainee in ear, nose and throat, which is the specialty that I want to specialize in medicine. And that obviously has that little bit of a connection with singing. So I'm hoping down the line I can specialize in the voice and help maybe professional voice users and use those that knowledge I have from my opera training with the knowledge of the voice and medicine. So that I think could be something for me. And then as well, try and keep going and sing as much as I can. I've got a few kind of like private concerts and stuff I'm doing, events, little kind of private events and things. And my show from the Fringe, a few people have are interested in maybe helping me do a bit of a tour of that. So we might see if that's possible alongside my medicine. But again, I've got to talk to my boss, see if
right.
But so just try and keep going and sing as much as possible, and then see where it goes, really.
Very cool. Well, I can't thank you enough for joining, and I just want to reiterate to anybody listening, this woman is a sign that you can literally do all the things that you would like to at least try and do. I mean, you are truly a Renaissance woman, as I said at the start, and it's a great privilege to have met. Thanks again for joining. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm just trying to get it, I ain't trying to die. Make a world cry. In the kitchen, wrist, like it's